But okay, yeah, for sure. So we are recording. But yeah, so as I was saying, in this session, pretty much we are going to be looking into your Venus, your Mars, your Jupiter, and we're gonna touch upon your Saturn if we have time. And so, as you know, each reading is like an hour long, and so pretty much I'll start the hour. Once I start talking about your planets. But okay, so for sure. So as far as Venus, Venus is the planet in astrology that kind of signifies and deals with relationships. It is considered a social planet, and it's also considered a harmonious or benefic planet, meaning that Venus's influences typically promote harmony and balance, whereas there are other planets like Saturn and Mars that kind of strictly promote discord and chaos into the life. Mars and Saturn kind of help you understand where your obstacles and where your challenges are, whereas Venus and Jupiter kind of help you understand where your strengths or where you may be given grace by higher forces and things like that. When what that energy revolves and deals with. So first and foremost, of significance to talk about is the reality that you have like your Venus in Gemini, but specifically in the 8th house. So Venus, when it goes into the 8th house, it can be somewhat of a, detriment or somewhat of like a negative. And this is because the 8th house is a house that deals with like private affairs. It deals with things that should be kept hidden, kept secret, things that can be considered taboo, or just very discordant and harsh energies also, because the 8th house is associated with the planet Mars. And typically when Venus goes into the 8th house, one thing I should also consider is this is like the house that deals with like enemies, specifically like open enemies, having haters, or like just having experiences with envy and jealousy and things like that. And so Venus is supposed to be like a benefic, beautiful planet, you know what I'm saying? That's supposed to promote harmony and balance and things like that. But when Venus goes into the 8th house, there can be this energy where as you navigate and you go through life, you may find like you kind of getting like hated on, or people like just being envious or kind of want to get at you for like no reason, but for the simple reason that you are who you are. And it may even be like because they want what you have type energy. But before I continue, I want to ask for like if this makes sense, if you can see this in your life, or if it's too far-fetched.
No, because I'm so empathic. I
Okay.
feel it when I walk in a room.
For sure. Okay, that makes sense, the empathic part. We'll get into the Gemini energy of it all, but
Hmm.
first I kind of want to talk about the 8th house because I feel like that's more significant. This is actually one thing that me and you share in common, so I can talk about this. My Venus is also in the 8th house. So, with Venus being in the 8th house, another thing that we can talk about when it comes to the 8th house is the theme of power and control. The 8th house deals with power, like having power over others and striving towards control over others, but simultaneously, because it's a feminine house, it can also play out as other people kind of wanting to dominate you or wanting to get power over you and things like that. So there can be this pull, tie and pull energy. And like I mentioned earlier, Venus is the planet that deals with like relationships, whether it's platonic, whether it's romantic. It's just overall social energies, like you interacting with people. Um, and so we talked about you should go back to the first, I'm sorry, the second session we did, and I'll send that video to you in case you don't have it, when we talked about like the 7 houses. So you actually don't have. I thought you had that. I thought you had Taurus as your 7th house cusp sign, but you actually have Gemini as your 7th house cusp sign. So what this would mean is that, um, so yeah, we don't really need to even talk about that per se, but it is somewhat of significance because most of your seventh house energy is in Taurus. So what that means, kind of just to briefly talk about it, or touch on it, is that a lot of the experiences that you have in even like the intimate personal relationships, because like Venus kind of just, it's like, okay, the way that the planets play out, it's like your sun, moon, and ascendant kind of make up the layers that compose like your individuality, the avatar that you walk on and operate from. Like your sun is, right, like your actions, your moon is your reactions, and your ascendant is kind of just who you are, like automatically when you're not reacting or acting. But then, like, you know, the inner planets like Mercury, Venus, Mars, etc., these planets are like tools that you have that you can utilize to navigate through life. And so, yeah, in general, it's important to understand that this is definitely a great theme for you, in relationships, like experiencing that eighth house energy, where it's like, so it's like power and control issues may arise, or envy and jealousy may arise, right? But simultaneously, I like how you touched on a reality that you are an empath. You know what I'm saying? And not even an empath, but yeah, an empath, and like you just are tapped in and tuned in. The eighth house is considered like a water house. You know, it's connected to Scorpio, so it is a house that deals with psychic energies as well and all that good stuff. So most definitely, one thing about you when it comes to not only the social affairs, because you have your moon in the eighth house at 27 degrees, conjuncting your Venus, which is at 27 degrees. So this is like a perfect aspect, um, which can also be an indication that even though there's discord in certain relationships that you may have, there is this ability for you to extract emotional like harmony, I guess we can say, from like your the relationships that you experience. So this can even be like maybe you going through things in relationships where it's like people may try to get power and control over you, but it's like either you may be a type of person who may be comfortable submitting to that, or you may be someone who has learned to thrive like in the chaos. I feel like Moon, Venus conjunct in the eighth house is kind of like someone who's learned to be comfortable and create harmony where chaos is concerned. But before I proceed, I kind of wanted to ask if that makes sense. And I'm trying to eradicate filler words. I'm trying not to say a lot, so pardon me. No. Hmm. But yeah, so is that something that you can see, or is it kind of far fetched?
In my relationships, yeah, I've left quite a few relationships because the man I was dating wanted to, in a sense, humble me.
Humble you. Hmm.
They thought maybe that my self confidence was too much for them, or
Mm.
um, at, like at some point they couldn't put me in my place.
Right.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so like I've had relationships. I've had a man who intentionally um, ghosted me on certain days or certain occasions, like intentional.
Yeah, like
Um,
he was trying to manipulate and like
yeah,
emotionally. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Um, my child's father at some point told me that what did he say? He said something in the semblance of um, I've been acting real confident around here lately, or some shit he said to me. Um,
Dang.
yeah, and
So, so it sounds like, because I was looking at the moon conjunct Venus energy, and a conjunction doesn't per se signify harmony or discord. It kind of just signifies a prominence, or there being power between these two orbs, and so or these two planets. So as we talked previously, the moon does deal with familial and domestic energies, whereas Venus kind of just deals with social interactions and engaging with people, um, whether that be like in all settings. So looking at it from a different angle, And also adding what you've told me, is it fair to say that a lot of the experiences you've had where like you've kind of been manipulated or
Mhm.
like etc. are in
A lot
family?
of narcissists.
Wait, can you say that last part for me real quick?
That I attract a lot of narcissists.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense, and I definitely see it in your birth chart. It's the conjunction between your moon and your Venus. Both Venus and the moon are feminine planets. Being feminine, they do deal with magnetism and attraction and things like that. And so, yeah, on one end, because it's the eighth house is a house that deals with like enemies, people that come at you with hidden agendas and things like that. It is important to be cautious and always trust like your intuition and your inner compass. You know what I'm saying? Because not only that, but I think it's also important because you have it in Gemini, right? We haven't completely talked about Gemini, but Gemini is the sign of like thought and thinking and logic. You know what I'm saying? And specifically, you have your moon and your Venus at the last decan of Gemini, which is the decan of reason. So I would say with this, it's of importance that you also tap into researching, narcissists and just becoming aware of that energy. And not only that, once you become aware of that energy and you know what to look out for, also starting to learn to become acquainted and familiar with how to cultivate and develop like healthier relationships. Like for me in my astrology, I don't per se just look at your chart and be like, yep, you're screwed because you have this placement and that placement and that placement. But I always like to remind people that your birth chart is like a reflection of the thought, like it's like the reflection of the thought structures or the deep rooted beliefs within your subconscious mind. Because they're deep rooted, it may be difficult for you to alter them, but that doesn't mean they're impossible. You can slowly but surely, in a long term setting, go from day to night, if that makes sense. Like your whole life doesn't have to be a story of you attracting narcissists and things like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I'll say this: with you having Venus in your eighth house, it's not only narcissists, but it can also play out as you attract, because the eighth, you're attracting like people that are occult, people like that can be one energy that you can try to shift your awareness into
Mhm.
and kind of make an intention to want to attract people that are more in a field that deals with like occultism, hidden things like magic, spirituality, even things like that.
Oh no, I have lately within the last 4 years. I have.
You have been
Um,
doing that, okay?
yeah, and it's not necessarily me intentionally,
Uh,
but because I started along that path.
okay.
Um, the universe has been putting people in places and spaces in my path. I've met quite a few over the last 2 years. The new connections that I have are mostly occult
Mm,
um, or spiritual enlightening. Um,
yeah, for sure.
yeah,
That definitely.
it's interesting. You said something earlier.
Okay, go ahead.
Um, to learn to be the peace within the storm.
Right, for sure.
So I absolutely know how to be the peace within the storm. And that is definitely something in the last year or so that I've been learning. I'm actually a child of Oya,
Okay.
uh, and it is a special gift that she gives her children to be able to be the peace within the storm, but also be the storm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
That's funny. It's funny you say that. It's because it's not only the eighth house that's prominent within your chart, but you also have Jupiter and Scorpio in your first house. So
mhm,
Jupiter is a benefic planet alongside Mercury. Both, I'm sorry, Venus. Alongside Venus and Mercury, Venus and Jupiter, they're both benefic energies. Jupiter is a higher. Jupiter deals with like spirituality, deals with like the different religions of the world. You know what I'm saying? And it deals with faith, hope, and it just deals with like the higher mind, you know, and tapping into like a higher perspective. And like even for instance your awareness of being a child of oh yeah, I hope I'm saying it correctly.
Mhm.
Yeah, oh yeah, right. Like even that, and so I'll say this, right? We'll talk a little bit about your Jupiter just to touch on it. So when Jupiter goes into Scorpio, right? All everything that I was talking about in correlation to the eighth house can be tied to Scorpio energy as well, because you know the eighth house is where the Scorpio stars kind of rebirth, or because you know the space comes before the stars themselves, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
yeah, Jupiter is a benefic planet. You know, whatever it gifts and grants you, even if it's a negative, it'll be like transformed into utilizing it positively. So I love that.
Jupiter is petty.
You said Jupiter is petty.
Yeah,
Why do you say that?
because even in the negative that's going on right now, I'm still not able to focus because then it's just everything else around either works out or is going excellent,
Okay,
if that makes sense.
so even though you're going through chaos, it's like constructive chaos. I feel, is that what you were trying to say? Like, or like even though it's negative and even though everything is not working out, really from a different perspective, everything is working out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying, but yeah, I guess I just kind of wanted to touch on. I wanted to touch on that a little bit. One thing I do look forward to talking about is your aspects, you know, and that'll be like in future sessions, because when we start getting into the aspects, we start to tie like the different planets together. And you have a couple of squares. I say a couple, but you have a bunch of squares. And the thing about a square is it is the most difficult aspect you can have in your chart. It is the aspect of friction. It's the aspect of lessons needing to be learned, you know, and like you have one, two, three, four. You have four aspects to your sun, and your sun is like your identity, your individuality. The sun kind of exposes and reveals like the hero's story or the hero's journey, if that makes sense. The sun is all about how you can rise above everything and how you can exalt and shine as an individual. And yeah, that's being squared on many levels. So it's like you definitely are being put through like the fire, and you're being sculpted and molded into becoming something great. I think when I was talking about your son, I'm pretty sure that I mentioned with you having your son in the ninth house, it's important that you exalt your will to align with the will of some of a higher power. You know what I'm saying? So your awareness is, oh yeah, so I would advise that you align, you know, your will as much in synchronization with you know, like the religion or the spirituality that has found you as possible. I feel like this would definitely help you you like gain more out of life and help your being and your in who you are come out further. If this makes sense. Does it make sense or
You said my sun in my ninth house requires me to what?
align, because the sun is the willpower, you know what I'm saying, what you're willing to, what you're willing into existence and what you're willing to do. And then the ninth house is the house of higher thinking, higher perspectives, spirituality, philosophy, religion, things like that. So yeah, that's I would recommend you aligning it with that. And also, like we've talked about, you have your moon, I mean your sun in Cancer, which is the sign of family. So it makes sense that the religion that you have, or the spirituality that you have been attracted to, kind of deals with familial energies, where it's like you are the child of this deity,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel is very much like, you know, Cancer energy. So I guess I just brought that up to say that definitely play more into that, because the sun deals with vigorness and like vitality, you know, what you should vitalize and what you should pour and give life into.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you should definitely give life into your spiritual practice of having that awareness, you know, that you're connected with this deity. Does that make sense? Or
Yes, it absolutely does.
all right, perfect,
On
perfect.
so many different levels.
All right, perfect. I'm glad it does. Okay, so now to talk about like your Venus in Gemini. So yeah, with your Venus being in Gemini, that was also one of the reasons why I brought up why it'd be of significance for you to attain as much reason. I mean, it's in Gemini, but it's in the third decan of Gemini, which is the decan of reason. So it'd be of value for you to do as much research and attain as much knowledge and awareness into like how to connect with people on a deeper level, but simultaneously how to embrace that power and control energy, but more so from your perspective, and learning to be like this person who knows how to influence people, maybe getting into understanding human nature, you know what I'm saying, psychology, things like seduction and all these different things. But it's like, of course, like we have to understand that everything is a tool, and it really depends on the individual utilizing the tool, whether it'll be used for good or bad, you know. So I never say anything is good nor bad, but it's like when you have 8th house Scorpio energies, you kind of got to go into the dark and, you know, take certain tools and then learn to utilize those tools positively and constructively, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
okay, great. Also, how do you feel about the dark and like dark energies and things like that? Looking at your chart, I would say that you're somewhat comfortable in the dark. Uh, but I kind of want to hear it from the horse's mouth.
I am internally comfortable in the dark and
Okay.
externally um, aware of what the dark looks like to
Okay.
others. And it has been a fight
For sure.
till I understood what I needed to understand. It's like I'm still fighting it now.
For sure.
Even some of the stuff that I'm going through right now is a cause because of me fighting, being accepting of my dark or my extreme.
For sure. You're dark or you're extreme. Yeah, I completely agree. And I love that you said it's a fight, because we gotta take into consideration that we're dealing with Gemini energy here, right? Where it's Gemini in the 8th house, and when you look at the Gemini symbol, it kind of looks like the Roman number or symbol for two, right? Or like two pillars standing next to each other, right? Gemini is considered the twins, and then like I like the Native American story about how we have two wolves within us, a light one and a dark one, and the one that wins is the one that we feed. But I say all that to say that when it comes to Gemini, Gemini is the twins. I like how in Vedic or Eastern astrology, they don't really represent it as two brothers, but more so the lovers. You know, like, and this is in tarot as well. In the sense that Gemini is more like the unification of the feminine and the masculine energy. And it deals with, whereas Libra kind of deals with balancing the dark and the light, you know, because Libra is, we just left Libra season, and Libra is like when day and night are balanced. Gemini more so deals with not balancing, but more so unifying and integrating both the light and the dark. You know, like kind of knowing how to walk, because Gemini is considered the one who has the ability to walk with one foot in each world. So it's kind of like having this awareness and knowing of when you should let the the feminine express and when you should let the masculine express. So it's all about learning to integrate them both together, like a yin and yang energy, where it's like one twin doesn't judge the other twin and the other twin doesn't judge the other twin, but they both look at each other and they understand that you have your reason for being and so do I. But I need to learn your boundaries and need to learn mine, in the sense that when it's your time to shine, I'll allow you and I'll let you be. And when it's my time to shine, I just ask you let me be as well. In the sense that it's not completely all about just darkness and learning to embrace your darkness, but it's all about learning how to just like holistically be dark, but also holistically be the light, you know. I don't know if you'd be comfortable with this, but like one thing I like to say, and it's 11:11 right now, interesting, is like I'll say I'll claim that, like, you know, because the I am is a very powerful affirmation. So I'll say I believe that I am God, but simultaneously I believe that I am the devil. um Yeah. But you know me, I've done such deep research into like what Satanism is, and I've wrote, not written, but I've read like a satanic book, and I've done all these things, so I know what it is. And I've like, the darkness only has power in the dark. Once you put light on darkness, you realize you were afraid for no reason. Like, you realize there wasn't a monster underneath your bed. It was just your imagination playing tricks on you. And I think yeah, this is definitely an important place that I feel like maybe you should also get into, because it's not completely about just learning to be comfortable in the chaos, but it's also of importance that you learn to bring light into your life because the eighth house is also a house that deals with transformation. So the objective and the goal is sure to go through the darkness, but to emerge into the light. If that makes, does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, for sure. Now, real quick, just to give general concepts on the Venus and Gemini energy. So typically, when Venus goes into Gemini, right, the traits that are associated with this, these are the social. These are people that can be very sociable. But when it comes to Venus in the eighth house in Gemini, we are like the social introverts, you know, where we are very aware on how our energy is influenced by other people. So we just might find ourselves inclining more towards being by ourselves and being isolated and being very picky, because with you having Venus in the eighth house, and especially in Gemini, because Gemini can be a very intuitive sign as well. Like, we can pick up on things, like, you know how to read people's body language, or just read people's energy to the point where it's like you're reading their thoughts, or you kind of know what their internal dialogue is, type energy.
Yeah. And people don't know that I'm doing it all the time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a Gemini
I
too,
would
so I
read a
resonate.
room, or I would read an area, and I would be like, I'll walk and start having a conversation, and I'll read the energy change, and I'll be like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
we got one.
exactly, for sure. Yeah, yeah. And you know, like, okay, like the two-facedness. All right, let's talk about it. Because the thing about Gemini is we do have this ability where we know how to kind of play a poker face, where yeah, I'll say that. Where we kind of may know how to play a poker face, and it's an energy of like knowing when the time is right, and it's kind of like everything has a role that it should be played. You know what I'm saying? Or everything can like serve a role, is I guess what I'm trying to say, in the sense that at certain times, like especially in work settings, this may not be constructive in like personal relationships, but let's say business settings. Um, it's kind of better just for the sake of the business flow for you to play one card even though internally you feel another way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So okay, for sure. So like, the because you know people say that Geminis are two-faced and this and the third, but it's not completely that they are two-faced and they're trying to be fake, but I think it may kind of be like a intellectually developed coping mechanism where in the past they may have noticed that when they just expressed themselves um, in their feelings, like things may have went south, where now they may be like, you know what, maybe I should kind of play this two-faced energy just for the sake of harmony and balance.
Mm-hmm.
If that, yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, yeah, Gemini, you know, that's one of the things. They are definitely, they have that ability to read people's body language, and communication. So you may be a type of person who just may know how to communicate with people, even if there are multiple like barriers, like in language or whatever. Like, there's just this innate ability to communicate. Um, yeah, and it may even be like an energy thing or whatever. But yeah, with Gemini, like, we just know how to communicate with people, and we always find a way. And that may be one thing that you may want to invest into, developing your communication skills and your communication abilities. Another thing with Venus and Gemini, these are like the asosapiosexual. I don't think I even said that right, but these are people that love mental stimulation. You know, they love when they are around smart people who can like teach them things, and they also love to teach other people things as well. They're also lighthearted in their interactions. In the eighth house may kind of weigh it a little bit more, where you may not be holistically lighthearted, but you may be like, so tell me about like you know, you may not be the best at small talk, even though you can be good at it. You may want to incline towards like the deeper energies of
I
like.
hate people talk.
All right, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
I always get awkward with it.
exactly. It's like I think what you should learn is learn to do small talk, but with the objective of getting the person comfortable and building rapport, so you can get into their nitty gritty details, like the like what happened to you when you were a child, like why are you this way, etc. No, for sure. And the cool thing about you having the eighth house energy is this is something that people are just naturally receptive to. So sometimes you may not even need to try. People just may come to you and they may like tell you their whole life story and be like, yeah, this
Yeah.
happened to me, that happened to me, blah blah
Yes.
blah.
I had one young lady, she was in the middle of telling me this really personal story, and she had just met me like 20 minutes before that. And she said, I can't believe that I'm just standing here telling you all of my business. Like, I know you.
Sheesh. Yeah, no, for real. It's real like that. It's real like that. So that's like something I would say like definitely find a way to utilize it. Don't let it just go quote unquote to waste. We never really waste nothing for sure, but you know, when you try then you get more out of it.
Hmm.
But yeah, for sure.
Another thing you said earlier, which really hit home. Um, when I was in college, I had
Mhm.
I was in the gospel choir. I was actually was the secretary of the gospel choir,
Mhm.
um, and I had a what do I want to call him? He was like he was one of the administrators for the choir.
Mhm.
Like he's one of the faculty members, chaplain for the choir.
Mhm.
He came to me one day. He was like, I love your ability to be able to be in two different worlds.
Mhm.
Because even at that time, I was still discovering myself. I think I was really out of the closet at this point.
Mhm.
Which I struggled with, but I was also living in a community on campus, and it was a all inclusive community. Um, it's called GRRRL, Girl House, Gender Relations for Real Revolutionary Living.
Mhm.
And we were an all inclusive house, in a safe house on campus. So, like, if you had a roommate that was gay bashing you, or, um, you know, um, being racist, or,
Mhm.
um, if your religion is different, whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
you can come stay with us, and we would use the resources on campus to find you another space, find you a different room, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, we used to do all types of rallies and marches for, rape avocation, and safe and sexual abuse and all that other stuff. Um, but I was also a very prominent member of the gospel choir as well.
Mhm.
And I lived in those two worlds for shit a long time.
Mhm.
But he would come to me, like, he really liked me because of the fact that I was able to live in those two spaces, and still influence people in both of those spaces.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No, most definitely. That makes sense. I
And
feel like.
I never understood that in itself was something that was mine.
Mhm. Well, now you do. Now you know. Or now you understand it even more. You definitely have this ability to be in two worlds simultaneously, right? Because this is the Gemini energy, the duality, like the light and the dark, or oof, yeah, the light and the dark, technically.
Yeah.
um, and it's both intended because it's in the eighth house, so it's both intended for like healing reasons and transformative reasons as well. Like one thing, like yeah, does that make sense? Like you're in these two worlds, and in both worlds you can render and give like healing and things like that.
Hmm.
And yeah, all right, for sure, for sure. One thing I also like about the eighth house is it's a house, being connected to Scorpio. It deals with like surgeons and like doctors, but specifically I want to talk about the surgery and the surgeon aspect of it. Like this is a house that can play out as like a person who knows how to go in and like kind of conduct surgery upon another person, and it doesn't have to be physically, but they can just help remove certain impurities and this and the third from another person. And this is, I feel, another reason why eighth housers are tasked with going through so much darkness and so much chaos, because in the long run they are transformers as well that are meant to take the darkness and release it, and etc. Yeah. But wow, okay. So yeah, just to talk a little bit more about the Gemini energy before we move on to your Mars, which is in Libra. So Gemini, as I mentioned earlier, these signs, like, they have an ability to be like people persons. Like, they're good at interacting and engaging socially with other people. So I feel like it'd be of value for you to always put yourself out there, maybe more so in a setting that's more private because it's the eighth house, but not to just isolate yourself, even though that may feel like what's necessary, but to learn to kind of put yourself more out there, and not only for the sake of helping others, but for the sake of ensuring that you yourself have resources and have like a network of people that can support you when you need it. Because eighth housers, they can really go through that isolation and alone energy, and they can deal with a lot of intense emotions that can be crippling, you know what I'm saying, for them. And sometimes all they need is like a trusted person that, like, maybe they can hold or they can talk to or whatever it may be, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, for sure. uh Venus and Gemini energy, another thing I think is to discuss is the sometimes it can be our own, like with the Venus and Gemini, it can be our own detriment, um because we may need intensive stimulation, and we may feel like we may get bored easily with people. So sometimes, and this can even be without us knowing it, we can be like unintentional flirts. Like, we can go out and be flirtatious and do certain things that may stir up energies, and just not knowing it. So I feel like, I don't know if you resonate with it, but just being attentive, okay, just being attentive and aware that you may be a flirt, even if you're not trying to sometimes.
Not, yes, I get bored easily.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm an intentional flirt.
Ah, because it's fun.
Um, yeah, it's pretty bad sometimes.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, maybe like finding a balance there, and just knowing like that um can lead, you know, it's kind of like that meme with like it's like Kim Kardashian's face, and it's like she's in a dress and she's kind of like, you know, because she's a Libra, so it's that indecisive energy, like, holy shit, what have I gotten myself into? Like, do I really want to go forward with this? Yeah, so that, you know, like like flirting without complete intention can lead there. So sometimes it's important to learn to balance things out, for sure. Yeah, but yeah, I think we'll move forward because there's always more to talk about when it comes to the, you know, these placements. But I kind of, because I'm intuitive as well, I feel like I share with you the things that I feel you need to hear and what are most important. So maybe in the future we can revisit and dive deeper, who knows. But yeah, next we are going to talk about your Mars, which is in Libra in the 12th house, and it's also squaring your sun. And we'll talk about that, the aspect, the square, in later sessions. So first and foremost, when it comes to Mars, Mars is the planet that deals with, it's also considered a social planet, but whereas Venus deals with harmonious experiences with people, going out and socializing, Mars is more like, how do you compete in the social setting? It's like, how do you dominate, and how do you like get ahead, and and this can even play out maybe through like having an excellent job where like you're making more than other people, so like, heck yeah, I'm this and the third, or it's just competitive energy in general. So Mars deals with like your ambitions. Mentally it plays out through aggressive energy. It's all about aggression. So this is your ability to be aggressive. So yeah, and your Mars is in Libra, so it's debilitated. So you may be a type of person who may try to avoid aggression at all costs or as much as possible. And hold on, yeah, or I'll say this and then I'll go back to Mars. So like a lot of the times, Mars and Libra people, these can be like the persons that are the people persons to the extent where they neglect their own cup and they're like trying to fill another person's cup up, and they're like they've neglected their own energy. But yeah, I'll get more into Mars and Libra. Yeah, Mars. I'll get more into Mars and Libra in a little bit. But anyways, yeah, that's what Mars deals with. It's like aggression, it's motivation, it's ambition, it's like the will to do something. Alright. So the sun is like your willpower and like what you are willing into existence. But then your Mars is like once you actually get up and you do it and you strive towards that, and you're like forget the obstacles. Like I don't really care what's in my way. Like I'm gonna get this done regardless. Now, Libra, right, when Mars goes into Libra, one of the issues that's founded here is Mars is in its opposite sign. Like Mars naturally rules Aries, and Aries is a sign that deals with the ego. Its key phrase is I am. It's all about me, self, I. And Aries, like Mars and Aries, like they don't care about putting themselves first and putting their needs first. But then when Mars goes into Libra, it's kind of the opposite, where now all of a sudden there is this energy of taking into consideration another, or just taking into consideration like ensuring that your actions are not out of balance, and trying to do things in balance but in accordance to balance that has been established by something outside of you. So now it's kind of this energy of moving in restriction, because you're kind of like not just going out and trying to do things for yourself because these are your ambitions and these are the things that you want to do, but more so doing things maybe because growing up your parents or your family told you like, yeah, this is what you should do, like this is what you need to do, and so like you're doing it in correlation to like wanting to make them happy or wanting to make them satisfied. And it kind of also comes from this energy of like not completely wanting to shake things up, even though sometimes they say like in order for you to make an omelet you gotta crack a couple eggs. So I feel like with Mars in Libra, they may have this desire to want to ensure that everything is in equilibrium and everything is peaceful, to a point where now all of a sudden it's like you may be playing out this energy of making sure that everyone is good, like using your fire, your passion, and your ambitions to ensure that you're filling up other people's cups and you're making sure that everybody is good, but it's like you're neglecting your own energy and your own self. And this can also play into the energy of you attracting, well, we'll say used to attracting narcissists, right? Where it's like people may kind of see this, because this is a person with like, and then you have your Mars in the 12th house, right? The 12th house is the house, it's connected with Pisces, and this is a house that does deal with self-sacrifice, but simultaneously it can deal with self-sabotage and self-undoing. And this is just like, so Venus is exalted in the 12th house, so it's important to understand this because yeah, it's important to understand this because Venus being exalted in the 12th house, it just shows that yeah, it just shows the heart energy, the heart chakra energy, because Venus very much deals with heart energies and love. And so this is like putting your love in places where you're not supposed to put your love, because this is where you're supposed to go to war and things like that. So it's kind of like being a person in a battlefield who wants to ensure that everybody's okay. Of course, those on your side, but also having empathy and caring about the enemy, and making sure that they're okay as well, and kind of wanting to bring balance to them, to the point where it's like you have no choice but to self-sacrifice. And yeah, with Mars in Libra in the 12th house, this is definitely like a debilitation, where it deals with like, rather than doing things in your life because you feel like this is what maybe society would deem to be good, or like just relationship, like something from a relationship, like giving you that fuel to pursue that ambition. Like rather than doing that, finding ways to synchronize more with the Aries energy and asking yourself questions like, what do I want to do? And starting to do things more so because these are the things that you feel like you need to do in order for you to put yourself in better positions, and so on and so forth. Um, like Mars and Libra people, they can also be the type who, because you know Mars is struggle and like strife, and Libra is relationships. You know what I'm saying? So this is like being willing to go through hardships and struggles in relationships because you feel like it's an obstacle that you may need to overcome. But you know, and but well, I'll just say this one last thing, and then I'll kind of ask for your feedback. It's like in relationships, it's always important to understand that it takes two to make things work, and you should never ever feel like you're just the one who's trying to carry everything or this and the third. Um, and also, it's important not to play this energy of always trying to balance things out because sometimes like you may be trying to balance things out, but then the other person's scale is completely tipped to one side or the other, it's imbalanced. But yeah, before I go forward, I kind of want to ask like for feedback and if this makes sense or if you have any questions that you might want me to answer.
Um, that's a lot. Uh, but it is probably what is affecting me the most right
Sheesh.
now. I've always struggled with my son knowing what I'm supposed to be doing, but my motivation to do it just kind of falls short. Um,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and then it's a battle to even push myself to be motivated. Um, and the self-sacrificing and the self-sabotaging. Um, the self-sacrificing within the relationship, all while self-sabotaging the relationship, um, is a shit show in itself.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. For sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I definitely hear what you're saying, and it makes sense. When you said because yeah, you know Mars, unfortunately, when it goes into Libra, it does get debilitated, um, because you know Mars rules like Aries, and Aries is like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. But then Libra is like 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and this is when this like the energies of the days are waning, and like because the Sun and Mars are definitely connected. You know what I'm saying? Their energies are very similar. So it's like what affects the Sun also affects Mars. Like Mars is debilitated in Libra, and so is the Sun. It doesn't have a good time. The Mars rules Aries, and the Sun is exalted in Aries. So yeah, what's of importance for this energy here is that, well, in the future when we get into alchemy, I'll kind of talk more about balance. But like when it comes to Mars energy, it's like you need to learn to balance it out with the moon. And alchemically, like we're doing, because Mars is iron, like it's the metal iron, and then the moon is like the metal silver. And so with Mars, you know, Mars being motivation and ambition, and the moon being like domestic energy or just emotions and things like that, or the soul. Like this can be like you connecting with an emotion inside of, or cultivating an emotion inside of you that may relate to some sort of domestic affair, or some sort of energy of making moves so then you're in a more comfortable situation. Like when you, I'll get more into detail when we get into alchemy because it's a lot, you know what I'm saying, to just break down in a couple minutes. But it's like essentially when you get into a place where you have done the internal work to kind of connect your Mars and your moon together, and you have this like energy of comfort, or and this can be like maybe you have children or something, whatever, that you're willing to sacrifice for, then you can get more into your Mars and you can be more driven and like gain more purpose and gain more motivation. But yeah, we'll talk
You
more.
know what's so funny, and I'm so sorry to
No,
cut
go
you
ahead.
off.
No, you're good.
Um, my child is an Aries.
Ah, look at
My
that.
little brother is an Aries, and I raised my little brother until he was about 4 or 5.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
So what they do, take some notes. No.
listen, and I push my child
uh,
I have a app on my phone. It's called Patterns or something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And
know.
it gives like the relationship balances between you know different people. So I have me and my child in there, and at some points it'll send me messages like I push my child to be everything that she wants to be. I give her a type of freedom that she never understood she could have. Like it's just yeah. So I'm understanding. Um,
Mhm.
I
That's
I
beautiful.
think I understood a long time a while back of why it is that I have an Aries child. Um,
Yeah, for sure. That's beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's so nice. Yeah, cause what you never what you def not neverly what you definitely need to do is learn to like balance yourself with gaining more Aries energy, like being more Aries, you know what I'm saying, and doing things more in accordance with the Aries energy. And also
Mm-hmm.
because you have that sun in Cancer, kind of learning more about Capricorn energy and learning to operate in the energy of Capricorn. And we'll get deeper into that, of course, in later sessions for sure. And the cool thing about this is both Aries and Capricorn are connected to Mars. So really you need to learn to cultivate more Mars energy, you know what I'm saying, which will balance out your moony energies, because, you know, you're a sun Cancer. Venus and the Mars, they kind of balance each other out as well. They're feminine and masculine, like they rule each other's opposite signs.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for sure, like, and you have like your ascendant in Libra, you know what I'm saying? Which kind of makes things difficult as well. We talked about that in the first session. Maybe in the future we'll get more back into it. Because the cool thing about astrology is, in general, it can act like a counseling type of tool that you can utilize until you're ready to, like, you're like, I'm ready, you know what I'm saying? You can move forward. But so I'm kind of giving you the nitty gritty details, and in the future you can dive deeper and deeper and deeper, and we can dive deeper and deeper into it if you feel like it's necessary. Um, but yeah, so Mars in Libra in the 12th house. One thing I'll also say is this: the 12th house, it's the house of the unconscious mind, and it deals with like baggage and like trauma and sorrow that a person carries with them. So with you having Mars in Libra, it's an indication that a lot of the struggles that you carry with you to this day deals with experiences that you've had in relationships. So there may be certain things that may have happened, certain mistreatments that you may have gone through in relationships that till this day kind of still linger around, and that you kind of will need to do some shadow work and kind of just learn and understand, like, how is it that do I move today, that how do I move like in my awareness of relationships that's influenced by past experiences that's still influencing me today in the relationships that I'm going to create. That was kind of like a mouthful. I don't know if you followed, but I can try to rephrase it for you.
I was following, but you can rephrase it.
Okay, for
Uh,
sure.
Also, even to say what we're talking about right now, I'm also carrying some past life baggage right now too.
Oof, 12th house,
That
past life, yes.
that I didn't realize I was living in. I've been living in it for quite a while.
For sure, for sure. I love that you brought up the past life energy because it's definitely 12th house related as well, for sure. And it's all about balance, you know, because we are dealing with Libra energy. So it's like carrying certain things from the past that you are now in this life going through things because you need to learn to balance it. And it's like a lot of the things you're going through are um, there for you to balance and so on and so forth. But yeah, you know, this is pretty much your Mars in Your Mars in the 12th house in Libra energy. And now we're already reaching the hour, but what I'll do is I'll just talk about your Jupiter, and then in the next session we'll talk about Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Does that sound fair? All right, cool.
Uh,
All right, for sure. So Jupiter, right? You have Jupiter in Scorpio in the first house, and you have Jupiter at 1 degree Scorpio. So this would be like a cusp between this is a cusp between Scorpio and Libra energy. Libra and Scorpio energy. So I feel like, yeah, like this kind of reinforces this energy of like having to go through things in relationships, and it's like that's where your expansion is going to be received the most, and that's where you can gain the most knowledge and wisdom. It's mostly and specifically like about yourself. Now, because you have Jupiter in the first house, right? That's why I said about yourself. It's like a lot of most of the things that you're going through in this life are made so then you can kind of learn more about who you are. But let me obviously this is for everybody, but and not completely so, because for some of us we go through things so then we can learn more about, you know, the religion or the spirituality that we belong to. For others, we go through things so we can gain more awareness about our personal resources and things that we value. But then for others, it's literally you're going through things so then you can emerge, being aware and knowing more of who and what you are as a person. Now, first and foremost, when it comes to Scorpio, it's important to talk about the energy of death and rebirth. You know what I'm saying? And so you having Jupiter, let's talk about what Jupiter means. Jupiter, like I mentioned earlier, is a benefic planet. Whereas, because Jupiter and Saturn, they kind of work together, you know, they're next to each other as well. Whereas Saturn kind of helps you understand if the road that you are traveling, like how long the road is going to be, and if the road is going to be bumpy or not. I feel like Jupiter more so kind of helps you gain an awareness of, you know what, never mind, let me talk about it more so like this, just so then it makes sense. Saturn is kind of like how long the journey is going to be, and then, you know, like in the things that you will interact with as you're traveling, like the hardships. But then Jupiter kind of helps you understand where the smoothness of the journey will be, where you will have help and assistance. Now, first and foremost, when it comes to Jupiter and Scorpio, this is an energy that kind of deals with a person who... So Jupiter is the planet of passion, you know what I'm saying? My bad, not Jupiter. Scorpio's a sign that deals with passion and like intense emotions. So with you having Jupiter in Scorpio, it kind of indicates that for you, a lot of the things and a lot of the experiences you go through, even though they may be Scorpio-onic and they may be hard and they may be struggle, you may kind of have this desire to want to go through that experience because you have this higher awareness and understanding that, like, even though I'm going through darkness and I'm going through chaos, it's necessary and it's for a good reason. So I feel like Jupiter and Scorpio kind of reinforces that energy of like learning to be comfortable in the darkness, but not only that, learning to get deep into the crevices of dark energies within your own being. Because, you know, Jupiter is in the first house. So Jupiter being in Scorpio in the first house, I feel also just reveals that the more you learn about yourself and the more you resolve like the traumas and the experiences that you've gone through in the past, like that you've personally gone through in the past, the better your life will be, and the more you will have access to like the divine and things like that. So it's like you went through all of these darkness and all of these dark energies and things like that, but it's like once you learn to like integrate them and really sit and realize what happened and why it needed to happen, like it's important to take a philosophical approach on the experiences that you did have, you know what I'm saying, like the personal experiences that you did have, And maybe those times when you may have felt like you were alone and like there was no one around. And learning just how much isolation has contributed to like your journey and why it was important. And so in doing so, what happens is, so Scorpio is a sign that's symbolized by the eagle, but and this is like its highest exaltation, but it's also symbolized by like the scorpion and the snake. And so this is when it's in its lower stages, and this is more so when it's in its passion and its like, you know, in its passion and its lower animalistic natures. um it's important to understand that the experiences that you had, like, so one of the things that Scorpio deals with is it deals with sexual experiences. And, you know, like I said, Jupiter kind of expands whatever energy that may be there. So with you having Jupiter in Scorpio, this is either an indication that you in of yourself, one way or another, like one thing that's prominent about you is like your like dark feminine sexual nature, like the Lilith energy. But before I go forward, I would like to ask, like, is this something that you resonate with, or are you having trouble piecing together?
No, I fully and wholeheartedly resonate with it.
Okay, for sure, for sure. Yeah, you know, so like with Jupiter, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Growing up, even with being in the church, I always felt like I had, as they would say, a Jezebel spirit.
Uh,
Because again, even by walking in the door, the men were looking, or the energy was changing and shifting, and I wasn't doing anything but just being present.
just being present, just being you, for sure. That definitely makes sense, you know. Just because like Jupiter expands, you know, it's almost like the spirit within you, like, and this is an aspect that people just can feel off the bat. You know, it's like an expansive type of energy that kind of can fill up the room and so on and so forth. So most definitely makes sense that you say that. That's one thing that people were able to feel. The energy, like the sexual dark Lilith, I want to say dark Lilith energy just because it's Scorpio, you know, like that feeling of like
Mm-hmm.
men being enticed and everything like that. And so like that's definitely one thing where there's knowledge and wisdom for you to gain, an expansion for you to like retrieve, like just getting more comfortable and more anchored in your femininity, you know, well, your sexual energies, and kind of learning to use it for yourself rather than allowing society, you know, telling you like you have a Jezebel spirit and this and the third within you. Because, you know, this is just something that's in your chart, and it's like your Jupiter. So even, and it makes sense you bring up the church, you know, because Jupiter deals with religion, it deals with church, and it deals with things like that. So it makes sense that one of your earlier experiences with this energy was in a church, and it was kind of opposed. Because, yeah, because in reality, no, this isn't an energy that you know, you and of yourself should be uncomfortable with, but you should learn, like, how can I utilize this more constructively. Now the thing about sexual energy is it's raw creative energy, and it doesn't always have to play out, you know, through like sexual promiscuity or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It can, and it's also like Scorpio is also a sign that can be considered like a powerhouse, or that has an ability to render tremendous amounts of energy. And this is because Scorpio is fixed water, and
Mm-hmm.
water is emotion. Fixation is like those emotions that are intense. You know, typically they're considered like more negative, like emotions of like revenge, emotions of like jealousy or passion, you know what I'm saying, and ambition and motivation. So yeah, it's important that you learn to tap into what like you're passionate about and things like that. And I feel like with you having Jupiter and Scorpio, you may find yourself inclining and having more interest in finding passions that deal more so with like spirituality, that deal more so with priesthoodness, that deal
Yeah.
more so with like bringing some sort of higher awareness or knowledge down into this world, or just spreading knowledge to people of the occult or of the unknown, because Scorpio also deals with things that are hidden and things that are unknown. So I feel like this may be one of the places where you can learn to source motivation from, finding ways on how you can expand other people's awarenesses on like the hidden and the unknown and things that are kept secret, even though they shouldn't be kept secret because they can help others. And this is not only like doing it for others through a lens of teaching, but it's like, because it's the first house, you kind of have to learn to embody it and kind of become that energy. So you kind of are going to have to learn to step more into your own magic and your own like spirituality, and tapping more into those energies of you that you had to pull out of the darkness or pull out of the unknown, and then live in that energy, but live in it from a perspective of like faith and awareness that this is one of the things that you are supposed to be doing. You are supposed to be tuning in and tapping into those emotions, deeper emotions inside of you, and like do something with them that deal with like teaching or helping other people. Before I move forward, I just wanted to ask real quick, just for some feedback, and if this is making sense to you, and if you have any questions or anything like that.
No, I don't have any questions. I don't think. Yes, it does make sense.
Okay, for sure.
When you were talking about learning and using the energy to learn about different things, and what came in my mind was imposter syndrome.
Mm.
So I would struggle with. I have all of this knowledge and all of this wisdom. I know certain things,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never really focused on either utilizing it or telling it to people.
Mm-hmm.
It was always easy for me to step into maybe so a semi leadership role, as far as um, like tarot cards and just the occult in general. But I never wanted to do that because I was not as educated as I felt I needed to be.
I feel
Um,
you. Yeah.
and I never wanted to have the imposter syndrome, but um, understanding where that comes from, because my even with the wisdom and the past life wisdom, I still in this aspect want to study and learn. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
No, it makes absolute sense, and the thing, okay, so this is kind of like in psychology. There's this concept of the, hold on, I'm looking at your chart. Okay, and I was correct. So you also, and we'll talk about this when we get into the aspects, you also have Jupiter squaring your sun, right? So your sun is like the face that kind of it's the one, like the general, or the one that executes things, you know what I'm saying? It's the leader. It's the one who's like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. And it's also how you see yourself. And it's squaring your Jupiter. So this means like there is this friction or conflict in like you being able to see that you have things that you can give out into the world, and you can teach, but more so feeling like, before I can teach, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this and this and the third and the fourth first, right? Because like I said, the square, it deals with learning and lessons, and the thing about this is we always have to remember it's all mental. And you can actually, okay, like when we get into alchemy, like this is one thing I do in my life with certain oppositions that I have, or squares, like, because I know it's all mental energy, and it's because of my birth chart that it's in my mind the way it is. I'll kind of change it, and the more you do it, the more fixed it gets, but it's temporary. But it's like if I was to do it every day and like create a system, then eventually it'll manifest as a new pattern in my mind. But it's like where instead of thinking about an energy like between two planets, like let's say my Mars and my Mercury, like as square, like I can't do this, like I need to learn things, like kind of like the square between Mercury and the square, I'll talk about yours, the square between the sun and Jupiter is like not completely trusting one's already experiences, because Jupiter is like your wisdom and your experiences and things that you've already gone through, but not like feeling like you still need to do more and kind of underselling yourself, even though you have this track record of experiences and of knowledge and wisdom, feeling like, nope, I need to do just a little bit more. And so instead, what you can do is, like, in your mind, like, create a trine energy where it's like you see it as the Jupiter energy, which is like your knowledge and your wisdom, is harmoniously flowing to your sun energy, which is what you express, and kind of just practicing that energy. And it's like the saying, I think so I am, and I am so I think, doesn't get like booted out when we're talking about astrology. It's all mental. Like, the first law is the law of mentalism, and it's important to understand that astrology doesn't operate outside of the laws of hermeticism, right? Which state the law of correspondence, as above so below, the law of vibration. And the law of vibration and the law of mentalism, specifically the law of vibration, allows us to change our vibration at any time, at any given time, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, for sure, I definitely do hear and understand what you're saying, for sure. And I'll also say this, it's not, well, of course it is, because you have the ninth house. Yeah, your sun is in the ninth house, so that's one of the things you will eventually need to tap into, learning to teach and share, knowledge and wisdom of a higher energy. But like Jupiter in the first house, like, just let's isolate that real quick. It's not so much about tapping into a teaching energy, but it's about living it out, you know what I'm saying, and like kind of doing it in your personal life and learning to connect with like your spirituality and your religion and having some sort of devotion energy in that and going as hard as you possibly can, because Scorpio is all about like intensity and really, really diving into it, if that makes sense. And of course, with there being a square, this may not be easy, like a square between your sun and your Jupiter. Yeah, for sure.
It's such a struggle.
I feel
It's
you.
such a struggle to create a routine. It's such a struggle to stay in the routine. It is so hard.
Yeah, I feel you. There's a lot going in your chart, like going on in your chart, like in regards to aspects, like yeah. And I'll say this, we were definitely meant to take that little break, and I was definitely meant to do this reading for you now versus, because like I've definitely tremendously expanded in my awareness and understanding as well. And it's like now I see things in your chart that I previously didn't have the eyes to see. So I love that everything happens the way it's supposed to. And yeah, exactly. But yeah, for sure, this has been the fourth session. I've recorded it as well, so I'll send it to you. I'm excited to do that for you. Yeah, so are you in a position where you're ready to get the ball rolling on our next session, or how is that looking like?
I can let you know on Friday.
Okay, for sure. It's definitely been wonderful talking to you and counseling you and like just doing your reading for you and all that good stuff. And yeah, I'll upload the video, then I'll send it to you. For sure, for sure. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and yeah, talk to you again later. All right.
All right. Thank you so much, honey.
Of course, you're so welcome.
All right.